right, it's time for Yang News of the Day, or Why Not? YNOTD. Why not? Nash Ridgeback helped me out with that one. I think he was the first one to write that hashtag out. So I'm gonna be using that hashtag. Thanks, Nash. Okay, so for today's episode of Yang News, I'm just going to focus on one item. If you'll indulge me here, Andrew Yang was on Meet the Press Daily with Chuck Todd, and pretty good interview, pretty long interview too for mainstream media. It was about 10 minutes long, but it was jam-packed. So, geez, I wrote out 4 or 5, maybe 6 pages here. Handwritten. Ridiculous. Okay, anyways, so let's go over this. Let's jump into this. I got a lot to say about this, I think. We're going to find out. Okay, so Chuck Todd. Most of you know Chuck Todd. Most of you know MSNBC. They've been pretty favorable to Andrew Yang. He's been on a few different segments. He's actually sat on a panel. So he's starting to make the rounds at MSNBC fairly regularly, which is cool. Okay, Chuck Todd. Would you be here if Donald Trump hadn't have won the presidency? Andrew Yang. Quote, categorically not, and I'm running to solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place, primarily because we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Iowa. But I would not be running if Donald Trump wasn't our president today. Okay. I share this sentiment. I would not be doing this channel if Donald Trump wasn't president. Like, I've been really into politics for the longest time, and I've never had an urge to be involved until Donald Trump. So this, like, I understand what he's saying here. Like, if Donald Trump didn't happen, Andrew Yang wouldn't have happened. Okay, it's just, I understand what he's saying there. I wouldn't be doing this channel. I wouldn't be trying to get involved as much as I am in politics right now. I was always happy to sit back and watch TYT and Secular Talk and David Pakman and the whole slate of progressive news outlets. Okay, but as soon as Donald Trump came along, I'm like, okay, I got to get involved. We're at a new level. We need to fight back. But anyway, I know what he's saying when he says that. So, anyways, Chuck Todd. What do you think the Democratic Party misunderstood about Trump 4 years ago? Andrew Yang. If you remember, Donald Trump portrayed out the devastation and suffering in many communities. Chuck Todd. But Bernie Sanders pointed this out. Barack Obama pointed this out 4 years earlier too. Trump wasn't the only one. He's just the most recent one. And just stop right here. Chuck Todd was extra feisty, extra condescending throughout this interview. Like, you'll never see Chuck Todd act this way in front of Amy Klobuchar or Kirsten Gillibrand or Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or Joe Biden or any centrist Democrat you can reel off. But all of a sudden, when Andrew Yang gets on there, the attitude comes out, the condescending manner, the condescending tone, kind of interrupting and cutting him off a little bit at the end of Andrew's sentences. And, if you just absorb the energy of the interview, it was really toxic coming from Chuck Todd. But this is just a special note. When you watch it, you'll notice. Okay, so Chuck Todd said, but Bernie Sanders pointed this out, and Barack Obama did too. Okay. Andrew Yang, quote, the prevailing response was that America was doing great. America heard that already and did not think that the Democrats were trying to solve the problems on the ground many Americans were experiencing. Absolutely. The Democrats completely abandoned the American worker. Well, maybe not completely, but they definitely negated a lot of their concerns, okay? Donald Trump picked up on that. Donald Trump exploited that. And Donald Trump won because of that. and the Electoral College, but he really won people over, okay, because the Democrats didn't address these concerns about jobs going away, okay, and Donald Trump did, and, that's history. Okay, so moving on. Chuck Todd, in some way, your signature proposal doesn't solve the problems, and it feels like a Band-Aid. You are basically trying to fill the gap as we figure out what the jobs of the 21st century look like. Am I being too cynical about that? Okay, so we jumped right into UBI here, talking about a Band-Aid. He's actually used this terminology. I don't know if this is devil's advocate or what, but this sounds kind of peculiar coming from Chuck Todd. Like he sounds like a lefty here or something. Anyway, Andrew Yang said, quote, UBI of $1,000 a month would create 2 million new jobs in our communities. It would help recognize the work that my wife does with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. So it's not a Band-Aid. It actually supercharges our economy and helps create opportunities in the way we need to go, which includes the caring economy. I like that. The caring economy, arts, entrepreneurship, creation, as well as Main Street economies, because of the buying power UBI provides, end quote. Fully agree with that. UBI would supercharge the economy across the board in arts, entrepreneurship, and Main Street economies, because you're putting money back in people's hands, okay? When you do that, they have buying power again. You start building a trickle-up economy, which Andrew talks about all the time, and it's a beautiful thing when you think about it. So yeah, it'll supercharge our economy, totally. Okay, moving on. Chuck Todd said, let's talk about the border. So they moved along real quickly. Let's talk about the border. There's a lot of angst and anxiety over the border. The president believes it's our asylum laws. Dems believe we need to have some type of tolerance policy. We have a migration issue at the border. What would you do? Andrew Yang says, quote, the first thing we have to do is put adequate resources to work at the border. We have a shortage of asylum judges, facilities, border patrol personnel, and there are potentially up to 100 or even 1,000 or thousands of unfilled positions because these positions don't play a competitive role in our government, and also these are not appealing places to live because the judges in the patrol have to go down there to live on the southern border. It's like desert-like, and it's not a great place to live, right? So that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like Andrew Yang does have the right idea here. We just don't have the resources, and part of me thinks the Trump administration wants that to happen. They want it to be inadequate. They want it to fall apart. They want it to be horrible. They want people to suffer. Like, I firmly believe that to some degree, that there's people in the Trump administration, like Stephen Miller, who want that to happen. They want that to set the narrative that, oh, okay, yeah, if you come to America, you try to get across our border, we're going to make you suffer. Okay, we're going to put you in pens. We're going to stack you on top of each other. We're going to make it so horrible, you're not going to want to come to this country. Okay, so it's multifold, but Andrew Yang has the right idea here. We're just not sending resources. Okay, so Chuck Todd bounced around some more here, and he said, I want to go back to your UBI proposal. Because of our debt is already up to 20 trillion, and I know in some ways if you're already getting the type of government assistance, you wouldn't get this money. How does this not inflate our debt and put us in a budgetary crisis? Okay, Andrew Yang. Who are the big winners in this economy? It's Amazon and other trillion-dollar tech companies, and in Amazon's case, they're literally paying 0% in taxes. I like how we said trillion-dollar company, because that's right. I think, which one is it? Amazon or Google? Which one's a trillion-dollar company? That's actually a legit talking point now. You can actually say trillion-dollar company. That just kind of leaped out of me there. Anyway, Chuck Todd asks, quote, are you going to change the tax structure before you hand out these checks, end quote. Andrew Yang, quote, we do it simultaneously, and the great thing is we'd be taking money from the Amazons of the world and putting it into the hands of Americans, end quote. Absolutely. I firmly believe that is the right thing to do. Okay, Chuck Todd. Explain to us how that works. Is Jeff Bezos gonna write us a check? Oh, Chuck, you're adorable. Andrew Yang, quote, we are going to do better than that. We are going to join every advanced economy in the world and have a value-added tax which would give every American a tiny slice of every Amazon sale, every Google search, and every Facebook ad, and every robot truck mile, end quote. Just one thing I want to point out here. This is one thing I love about Andrew Yang, how he goes to bat for his talking points. It's one thing I loved about Bernie Sanders. He said the same thing in a consistent manner all the time. And then every interview, every speech, you name it, he was saying the same things over and over. And I appreciate that. Even if I've heard it a million times, I appreciate a politician who stays on course with their talking points, with their policy rhetoric, and it serves them well. It gets me supporting them more. I just want to point that out there. So if you hear the same thing over and over again and you're like, oh, I kind of heard that before, it's like, no, that's a great thing in politics. Consistency is great in politics. It just shows you have character and you have faith in what you believe in. Okay, so it's always a good thing. Okay, so how many pages do I got here? Jesus. 1, 2. All right, 2 more. This is a pretty long interview. Okay, now at this point in the interview, Chuck Todd is really getting moody. The mood has changed. It gets exponentially worse as the interview goes on. It's just, this guy is like, is he like this with anybody else besides Andrew Yang or Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie Sanders? Likely not. They're always like this with the populist candidates. They're always like this with the progressive candidates. It shows up every time. Anyways, the interview goes on. Chuck Todd. If you're the nominee, I've seen candidates push a fair tax, a VAT tax, or a national sales tax, and every candidate that has ever tried to put it out there, if they want to win the nomination, they get eviscerated. Because somebody basically shows, hey, look at how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost to take your kid back to school now. Look at how much it's going to cost to buy everyday products. These things scare people. Let's see. I think this is Andrew Yang here. It's more than a refund. It's a dividend. And for every dollar from the VAT, every American consumer would receive $3, and it would increase the buying power for approximately the bottom 92% of Americans. And Americans understand what 12K a year stands for and their families. Absolutely. Okay, let's wrap this up. Okay, Chuck Todd, why aren't you running for a lower office instead? Shooting for the presidency? I get it. But isn't it more practical to build from the ground up? Okay, it's an honest question. Andrew Yang, quote, well, I ideally wish we had the time, but the reality is that robot trucks are 5 to 10 years away from hitting the highways, and driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states around the country, and 30% of malls are closing in the next 4 years because Amazon is sucking up $20 billion of business. So if I took decades to climb the political ladder, unfortunately, our economy would be transforming beneath our feet. We just don't have the time to play political games. Boom. That's a great answer. It's really a time-oriented thing. Like the things that Andrew is pushing for is very time-sensitive. So he doesn't have time to build up, to go up the political ladder. He's going straight for the top. That's where he feels he needs to be, and that's what's up. So I'm going to leave the interview down below. Make sure you watch the interview. It's really good. But let me know your thoughts down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell.